You're listening to Catalyst for Change, and my name is Jessica Huckabee, your host. I started this podcast to learn what makes people resilient after challenging events in their life, and how they've used those series of events as a catalyst for change in their life. You'll hear stories of resiliency and strength, and so get ready, sit back, and be prepared to be inspired. Today I'm speaking to McCall Bennett-Lawrence. McCall has been on a spiritual journey for most of her life. Her search has led her through explorations of various major world religions, but ultimately she landed on a higher power of her understanding, named Waldo. She talks about early life experiences that had started her on this spiritual journey and the positive growth mindset that has been instrumental in her life. She's married with 2 children and lives in Koreatown, Los Angeles, and she hosts the podcast called Unboxing God. Welcome to the show, McCall. Tell us what has been a catalyst for change in your life.
I am an only child of a single mother, and we lived together in a part of Cleveland, Ohio that didn't reflect our heritage, our culture. It was an all-black neighborhood with a lot of Hasidic Jews, and I am neither Jewish nor African American. So we were extremely enmeshed, my mother and I. And add to that, she wrestles with the disease of alcoholism and has long before I was born. The world's edges feel very sharp to her, as she explains. And she found prescription medicines and alcohol softened those edges. And at a certain point when I was about 7 or 8, her need for that alcohol overwhelmed her, and she ended up in the hospital in rehab and detox. I came home from school, and there was no parents home, and my babysitter basically took me to the hospital, and I got involved in a program called Alateen. That was the first hospital stay. I am now 46, so we're talking 40 years later. She's been in and out of detoxes and rehabs. We're going on, it might be over 90 times, honestly.
Who was there for you when you were going through that tough time? You mentioned Alateens, but was there a certain person that was a spark to help you get through those tough times?
Oh, that's almost a hard question for me because those times are so blurry in my head that one person doesn't jump to mind. I had a sponsor when I was young, and she felt stable, but I didn't think she'd be there for long, kind of. I thought it was just a temporary thing. She ended up being there for several years, but I would really say my grandmother, my grandparents, who lived across town, a good hour away, and were already starting to get older. Their consistency and support was definitely a source of strength through that time. Yeah, I would have to say my grandmother above all.
Your grandmother. And she was a strong support system, and she seemed like she was more balanced. And
yeah, and at that age, I don't know that I thought about it as balanced. I just knew it was consistent. That I wasn't sure if my mom would be picking me up from school, but if my mom wasn't, my grandma would be there.
And you could stay with her, and you had a safe place to be. So how did that?
They had cable TV and Nickelodeon. I mean,
nice. Great for a kid, right? So how did that situation with your mom, being in and out of rehabs and, not knowing if she was going to be around, how did that teach you to be resilient?
Well, I think kids are naturally a lot more resilient than we give them credit for. And at that point, I didn't overthink it. It didn't affect me actually as much as it did as an adult.
Yeah.
But what it did do is I got all the symptoms, all the isms of alcoholism without the craving for alcohol or drugs. I have the same gut reactions, intense emotional reactions to things that feel huge to me. And my feelings feel blown out of proportion. I feel unusually, I call it terminally unique. I felt like there was no one else who really understood. It created both a conflicting personality trait in myself where I isolate completely because I feel so alone. Anyway, I can be at a party with people who love me and I feel alone. And that's kind of the flip side of ego. And the other side is this inflated sense of purpose or worth, or I was created for something, kind of an expectation, not necessarily of riches and fame, but of something important. Like this was all going to be for, well, my program of recovery, I do work a 12-step program for adult children of alcoholics and friends and families of alcoholics. And through that and through the 12 steps, I have been able to look at myself and my characteristics with enough detachment and not judging myself or feeling ashamed or blaming, and being able to recognize that being the child of an alcoholic from a very young age, I naturally developed defense mechanisms and an armor to protect me. Part of that was isolation. Part of it was exaggeration. Part of it was manipulation because I had a sense of everything being out of control and I wanted to control it. A lot of resentments that come from expectations that I've had in my life. Just the connotations I had of what is a mom at 9 years old. I mean, that's informed by Disney movies, right? My concept of what a mother is supposed to be didn't line up with what I had. So I felt injured. I felt deprived. Instead of looking at my situation as it was, finding some acceptance and gratitude in it and focusing on that, I really delved into the negative and got attention that way, became very punk rock and goth and got a tattoo at 14 and was sleeping around, doing pot and trying to get arrested. Characteristics I developed were protecting me, but as an adult, they do not serve relationships. They interfere with any true vulnerable bonding with another person.
And how have you worked through that? Have you been able to work through that?
While I don't think that it's something that I graduate from, that I've worked through or ever will, I think it's a continual process.
Yeah.
I think about it like going to the gym. If I go to the gym because I want my body to look better, I want to feel healthier and look healthier for myself, starting is horrible. Like, I don't want to go and I'm exhausted after doing it. I don't want to go tomorrow. I'm sore. You've got to force yourself to do it. But as you get into a routine and it becomes more habitual, you start to see the positive effects of working out, right?
It's kind of like exposure therapy, right?
Exactly. Yeah. That becomes the motivation. You look in the mirror and you're like, whoa, my skinny jeans fit. Suddenly tomorrow you want to go to the gym a little bit more than you did last week. Right. That's my process of recovery. It was a lot of work that I felt very resentful for. Why do I have to do this work? Because my mom's a drunk, and I'm a punk rock kid and I just want to go be with my friends. So there was tons of resentments until as an adult, I accepted my part in the chaos and in the dances that I did with boyfriends and with employers and with teachers and with parents and authority figures that were all characteristics that came from being a child of an alcoholic. When I took responsibility, 100% responsibility for my 5% in that, suddenly I felt less out of control because I was finally trying to control the one thing I can, me. Right?
I love that.
I look at things. So that was the pivot point as an adult into true recovery. But just like a gym, if I stop going, if I stop doing the work, if I stop doing the reading and the soul searching and the talking, your body goes to shit and so does your soul. Be vigilant. I work recovery with vim and vigor is what I say. I like thinking of my life now, kind of the yin and yang idea. Have you heard the Cherokee tale of the grandfather who explains to his grandson that we all have two wolves fighting inside of us, the black wolf and the white wolf? And he says, which is the one that wins? It's the one you feed. That was a huge pivot point to me because being this, emo, black eyeliner tattooed 14-year-old, I had put on a martyr face because of my experience. I wanted attention and honestly pity. I didn't feel strong enough to have any pride in being a survivor yet. But once I started looking at my life and my experiences through that lens of gratitude instead of pity.
Mm-hmm.
I had something to give back. And sharing my story, the more I share it, the more the pain I've experienced is balanced out with the tools that I've used and that other people get to use. Like I'm paying it forward in some way when I have a bunch of sponsees in my program, and I have actually 3 sponsors too that I reason things out with. And that in our program, we don't give advice, but it is really helpful to get different options because I'm so reactive and I'm so quick to want to get out of it uncomfortable feelings by doing an action, right? To jump through the discomfort. I don't like sitting in uncomfortable stuff. And I feel like if I take an action, it'll short circuit it. And sometimes that action makes it more chaotic, but in some weird way, I feel in control of it. Like I caused it. It's like creating a situation in a lover relationship where they're going to break up with you, but you made it happen. It's like very manipulative. And once I realized that I was wearing that martyr face and that I didn't need to, that I could be both hurt and sad and grieving and angry and appreciative and connecting with something better and outside of myself that I can foster through me and touch other people like people had reached me. Because I'll go to even a grocery store and I'll see an older woman who has grace and poise. You can tell they're hurting physically. I find people I admire all around me and know that with work, just like the gym analogy, if you see somebody and you're like, oh, she's got a kick-ass body, I want to look like that, you've got to do the work to get there. And when I finally accepted that the work with it was within me and not dependent upon other people, because for years I just left situations, I broke up with people or made them break up with me, or moved from Ohio to LA to get away from my mom, or sabotaged a job, or I was the common denominator. It didn't matter where I went, what I was doing. I was unhappy because of me, not because of my situations. And that whole idea that life is 90% reaction to your situations and 10% of what happens is really true to me. And that's when I've seen the biggest shift. Well, just that, like the equation A plus B equals C. I can't change B. I can't change everyone else and everything else. I can't change that we're under quarantine right now.
Yep.
And C is how I experience me, A, plus B. If I change A, C changes. Just naturally. It's just a fact. And if I can't change my situation in the B, and I finally take responsibility and start changing A, I do see how the sum of those two parts looks better, feels better. I'm more content. I feel more connected.
You sound like a wonderful mentor to these mentees that you have that are going through difficult situations. It's just very uplifting to hear you talk about the struggles that you've had and how you've overcome those and built resiliency within yourself and, the tools that you've learned along the way. What are some of the other tools and things that you've shared with people that you're mentoring through difficult times?
My 2 favorite tools are alphabets. There's the 3 A's and the 3 P's. The 3 P's: perfectionism, procrastination, paralysis. And this is a hallmark of my life. This desire to be perfect in order to earn love and attention, and putting things off instead of doing them badly, procrastinating to the point that I feel paralyzed. And this has been, this is like a Sisyphus situation with college and reports and relationships and job responsibilities. I put things off till I'm paralyzed because I want them to be perfect. For me, the big pivot in that, there's a reading from one of the books in Al-Anon called Courage to Change. It's a daily reader where there's a different story each day. And there's one on March 26th that talks about perfectionism, procrastination, and paralysis. And one of the lines in it is like a mantra: I choose to live my life not as a command performance, but as a series of experiments from which I learned to live better. That gave me permission to wake up in the morning and put on a lab coat and observe my day, be present in my day instead of thinking about my past and wanting to change it or worrying about the future and what I need to do to control it and manipulate it, to be present, to have my head over my feet and my heart in between and aware of what's going on around me so that I can see the beauty and face the discomfort. And instead of making everything a grand performance, thinking I'm going to get love and approval and feel better that way, having that detachment from the things I experienced allows me to collect data and make a hypothesis. Like, I think tomorrow would be better if I wasn't in such a damn rush. Yesterday, I held my pee for an hour because I was trying to finish something up, and then I was late going to get my kids, and then I wasn't able to go get groceries, and I beat myself up. What if I pause? Just for today, let's do an experiment and just don't rush. Maybe things will fall apart. Maybe the school called the cops and say I've got a negligent parent. Not in one day, McCall. Don't exaggerate. See what happens. Experiment.
Yeah, I like
waking
that.
up each day with that kind of mindset just gives me a peaceful playfulness about even the bad stuff that happens. Yeah, I mean, I call my higher power Waldo. That's my nickname for Jesus, Jah, Buddha, Krishna. All of them combined is Waldo to me. As in, where's Waldo? No matter how crazy the picture in front of me gets and how much I want to shut the book on it because it's overwhelming me, if I pause and breathe and invite my higher power and my friends in, I'm really not alone. And we can look together for those red and white stripes of Waldo, some higher power, some silver lining, because for decades of my life, my nose was pressed so close to the cloud. And I felt like, that Charlie Brown thing where it's following me and woe is me, very Eeyore. Really, it took a perspective and a distance and a detachment to be able to see the whole cloud and guess what's around it. Just like you said, there are silver linings. There is a Waldo in every situation I've ever really allowed myself to look into.
And that Waldo could be teaching us something at this moment with this whole COVID-19 business.
I see incredible silver linings in it. People who are being creative for the first time in decades because they've been too busy with work to write songs or make a podcast or call an old friend.
Exactly.
So, yeah. And I choose to feed the white dog and focus on the silver linings. The clouds are there. I'm well aware of them, but learning how to sit with them and accept them, which brings me to my 3 A's: awareness, acceptance, and then action. In that order. And because I like complicating things and I'm such a fire ready aim person, I make it a little more complicated. I go awareness, acceptance, all the way to appreciation, and then
Nice.
action. Because if I get to the point where, as much as I hate what just happened, and it could be my kid opening the fridge and the milk spilling and shattering on the floor, and now I got to deal with this. Instead of getting upset, okay, breathe. I'm aware this milk just spilled. How can I find acceptance in this all the way to the point that I wouldn't change it even if I could? How can I think about what the silver linings could possibly be? Maybe I can use this time to be with my kid and we clean it together and we talk and we feel better. And maybe under my fridge is going to be cleaner than it's been in ages,
Yep. Maybe you'll find a lost earring.
Yep, exactly. You could find a lost earring.
I love your energy and I love how positive you are. It really just is making my day. So it sounds like you have developed a lot of cool tools. You've been through a lot. You're helping other people. Is there a way that people can get a hold of you or to learn more about, things that you've learned or connect with you on social media?
Absolutely. On Facebook, you can look up Unboxing God, and the Unboxing God Facebook page, you should see Waldo doing yoga when you get there. You can reach me through that. You can also write to me at waldolovesme@gmail.com. I have my podcast called Unboxing God that's on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spreaker, wherever you listen to podcasts. My intention for the podcast is to really make it a community and a conversation with people who are listening, no matter what their faith walk or journey or where they worship or how they worship or what they call God. I believe that if you try to keep an open mind, you will find help. That is really the crux of it for me. And so keeping an open mind and not debating who God is, but rather who God could be, is a conversation I want to have with other people. And the more alternative experiences and imagery that people offer me, the bigger my God gets. And that's why I call it Unboxing God. First of all, I'm not fighting with him with the boxing gloves on anymore, trying to control. I'm relinquishing that and surrendering. But I'm also unpacking him because I don't want to limit the God of my understanding by religious definition and scripture and things that have been written in English by white old men. Like, I believe the God much bigger than that. The God of my understanding can't be contained like that.
I love that. I love that. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. You have been listening to Catalyst for Change. Join us next week for another story of resiliency. And please hit subscribe so wherever you listen to podcasts, you can be kept in the loop. In the show notes, you'll find more information on where to find McCall.